Welcome everybody, and uh, today our speaker is Dr. Alexander from National Museum of Tanzania, and this is the second lecture in this online discussion series. So I will hand over the stage to Prachi Joshi and Dr. Rajika, who are the ECRs of this Paleo Home project. Over to you, Prachi.
Hello everyone, welcome back. This is me, Prachi, and we have Rajika. Rajika? Hi. Okay, so like Achilles said, we are the ECRs of Paleo Home, and we will be, running this series of lectures for the ECRs for next few months. And why we are doing all this, like in our last sessions also, I mentioned you all like what is Paleo Home and why we are doing this. So mainly this Paleo Home project, it's about uh, to bring all the experts together who are working in Africa, India, Arabia, or Southwest, East Asia, in all these parts, and there will where we will be addressing the key issues related to uh, chronology or the paleo environments, behavioral variability over the lower Paleolithic, while exploring the similarities as well as dissimilarities at these different sites. And as a part of this big project, we are organizing an online lecture series for early career researchers who are working on these different aspects of Lower Paleolithic. And through this series, we are aiming to create a network within ECRs from these various regions, and we are looking forward, to build a collaboration between the ECRs and discuss each other's work on this platform. With this, I will now ask Rajika to welcome our today's speaker, Rajika.
Yes. Welcome. Welcome everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome everyone to this online discussion as started by my colleague Prachi. I ask you, who doesn't know Olduvai Gorge, named also the cradle of mankind in East Africa? This region of Africa continues to deliver new pertinent data on the cultural and biological patterns on early humans. For the second ECR session, we are honored to welcome an early career researcher working as a curator at the National Museum of Tanzania with a PhD in Palaeolithic Archaeology from University College London. He is an Africanist archaeologist specializing in the archaeology of human evolution, lithic technology, and human behavior. He has participated in different fieldwork in Paleolithic sites within Tanzania, Spain, United Kingdom, Qatar, or Bahrain, Oman, etc. Apart from being an archaeologist, he is also passionate about environmental conservation with a strong commitment to protecting our planet by reducing waste and encouraging eco-friendly practices. Without too much delay, welcome to Dr. Alexander Kabelindde, who hopes to shed light on the technological behavior of Homo erectus by analyzing the lithic assemblages from beds 2, 3, and 4 from Olduvai Gorge. I can't go further. I will let you listen to his presentation. Precious auditor, please, I remind you that this session will be recorded. You can start, Dr. Kabelindde, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, the organizers, for inviting me to present my research on technological behavior of Homo erectus in beds 2, 3, and 4 of Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania. Thank you. So one of the most important events in human history was the emergence of technology that allowed our ancestors to make and use stone tools. Stone tools have remained the most important evidence that help us in reconstructing hominin behavior and technological skills. These are likely influenced by different aspects that influence hominin's technological organization. And in this talk, I will discuss hominin behavior from the point of view of archaeology. So throughout this research, I will present the background to this research, aims and research questions, the geological setting, materials and methods. Then I'll move on into the archaeology, whereas I'll present the FC, JK, and WK sites, as well as the continuity and change within the Acheulean assemblage. And this part, I'll be comparing the results or the technological results from FC, JK, and WK sites. Then I'll move on to the conclusion of this research. So while a large body of research concerning hominin technology and raw material procurement strategies has been developed, much less is known about the technology of the technological behavior of the Acheulean hominins at Olduvai Gorge. And as you can see, these are some of the famous textbooks by Mary Ricci from Olduvai Gorge, and the previous models, including Mary Ricci's monographs, addressed the lower Pleistocene technologies at Olduvai, focusing on the interpretation of the tool types. So basically, Mary Ricci's analysis was mainly focusing on the typology. This method used by the Riccis as the primary method of artifact description in different sites in Eastern Africa. And it played a key role in influencing subsequent research in the studies of early hominin behavior. However, it lacked analytical aspects and discussions, and most of the discussions had not included a study of hominin technological organization. Thus, different researchers had initiated alternative approaches of studying hominin behavior using lithic artifacts. And therefore, this research is dedicated to studying Homo erectus technological behavior by analyzing lithic artifacts from sites within the Acheulean sequence of Olduvai, from the time interval which had received less attention than the typical beds 1 and 2. So basically at Olduvai, most of the hominin behaviors research had focused in bed 1 and bed 2, which are by far one of the richest beds in terms of archaeology and paleontology. So my research uses 3 sites: FC East, JK site, which is Juma's Korongo, and Wayland's Korongo or WK sites, to undertake an in-depth research into the technological strategies of Olduvai hominins during the lower Pleistocene times. And these assemblages in the early Acheulean of Olduvai stand as a pivotal sources that will shape the empirical and conceptual frameworks of this research, which aims to define the techno-economic behavior of Homo erectus and Homo erectus and the Acheulean techno-complex in Olduvai Gorge. So my research has the ultimate goal of investigating the technological behavior of Homo erectus within Olduvai Gorge. And to achieve this goal, 2 main research questions were asked. So through the technological analysis, I tried to see what were the technological capabilities of Homo erectus at Olduvai Gorge, particularly within beds 2, 3, and 4 of Olduvai Gorge. But also I was interested in understanding if there is a stasis or technological change within the Acheulean small debitage within beds 2, 3, and 4. In my research, I think I should put this clear, I did not conduct an analysis of the Acheulean hand axes, because in its own right, Acheulean hand axes are a PhD topic here, which my colleague had already written a thesis. So let us have a look at the geological setting. So Olduvai Gorge was discovered in 1911 by a German researcher by the name Wilhelm Kattwinkel. Later on, Professor Hans Reck, who was the geologist, conducted the discovery of the paleontological fossils, and Hans Reck was responsible for the subdivision of the Olduvai sedimentary sequence into 5 units. So these are some of the earliest research on the Olduvai's geology. And Reck named the Olduvai sequence as schistocomplexes, which were basically later replaced by the term beds. So on this map of Africa, this is where Olduvai Gorge is located in northern Tanzania. And this picture at the bottom right is the actual Olduvai Gorge, which is divided into 2 branches. This is the main gorge, originating from the lakes Masek and Dutu in Serengeti, and then there is a side gorge which is located farther south. So in this gorge, this is where the sites were located, and I'll talk about it in a second. So Olduvai cultural deposits and the paleontological materials are within the beds 1, 2, 3, and 4, Masek, Dutu, and Naisisu. So these are 7 major geological beds, which are dating between 2.1 to about 15,000 years ago. So on this picture here, these are the Olduvai geological beds. So this is the bed 1, which is one of the thickest beds, and then there is bed 2, bed 3, and bed 4. So my research had focused on materials from beds 2, 3, and bed 4. Again, here, just to give you a little bit of a picture, so Olduvai is mainly within bed 1 and some parts of lower bed 2. Then we have developed Olduvai within the bed 2, then Acheulean, then bed 3 we have proper Acheulean, as you can see the hand axis here, and then the bed 4. So now, after we have reviewed the location of Olduvai Gorge, let's us have a look at the Acheulean industrial complex. So for those of you who do not know, Acheulean derives from the famous site in France called Saint-Etienne, and these technologies famously associated by Homo erectus, Homo erectus, and it is characterized by handheld artifacts, such as the iconic hand axe, as you can see at the top right image here. This is the hand axe, and this is the skeleton of the Homo erectus, which was discovered in Kenya. And so in this study, as I mentioned, I'll be talking about only the small debitage materials and not the hand, mainly plaques, cores, and retouched tools. So the Acheulean technocomplex appeared on the African continent around 1.76 million years ago. So these are the earliest evidence that we have so far in Africa, from a site in Kokisele in west of Ghana, Kenya, and Koso Gardura in Ethiopia. Other Acheulean sites in Africa within Ghana, which dates to around 1.4 and 1.7, Melka Konture, Olduvai Gorge, we have evidence around 1.66. Peninge, again in northern Tanzania, a site which is geographically very close to Olduvai Gorge. And then in South Africa, we have Wrightpoots and Steekfontein. So now I will be narrowing down into Olduvai Gorge, Gorge's Assyrian research, whereas in 1933, Louis Leakey and his team conducted one of the first expeditions. And then later on in 1951, the Leakeys published a monograph which was basically reporting on the Handaks bearing culture. Then extensive research by the Leakeys had influenced major discoveries and achievements within Olduvai Gorge. Some of the famous discoveries were the discovery of Zinjanthropus boisei, or OH5 in 1959. Then a year later, OH9 or Olduvai hominid 9 was discovered, and which belongs to Homo erectus. It was discovered from the layers which date to about 1.4 million years. Then one of the most famous monographs that presents the research within beds 1 and bed 2 by the Leakeys was published in 1971, which is basically presenting the Oldowan and Acheulean Handaxes, as well as developed Oldowan. So now let's have a look at the materials and methods. So my project uses both experimental and archaeological materials. So the archaeological materials are mainly lithic artifacts from beds 2, 3, and 4. Then these were analyzed from the technological perspective, and they will aid to the addressing the answers of my research question. And in one way or another, they will inform us on the hominin technological behavior from FC, JK, and WK side. So as can be seen on this table here, the assemblage were arranged in the chronological orders, the oldest being the FC East, then JK West, JK2, and WK side. Later on in the analysis, the materials from JK West and JK2, I will put them together just to save time. So the survey of the raw materials sources was also one of the methods that I used, and they help us to understand, they will inform us to understand the raw material economy and the land use pattern of the hominins in the planning of the raw material procurement processes. So this is the experimental sample. I analyzed a total of 14 experiments, which were manufactured from the original raw materials from Olduvai Gorge, particularly selected chert, lava, and quartzite. So just to give you a little bit of a picture of the archaeological sites where the stone tools that I'll be discussing came from. So this picture is the Olduvai Gorge itself. Sorry. And FC is located at the northern part of the side gorge, JK within the actual Olduvai Gorge, WK further south of JK side. So from this slide, I will be talking about the major Olduvai raw material sources which were used by hominins. So Nibosoid further up here was the source of quartzite raw materials. Then chert was from MNK. MNK stands for Mary Nicole Korongo. Most of the Olduvai sites were named by the Leakeys. So for example, Mary Nicole was Louis Leakey's first wife. And then lava materials or cobbles were mainly located, originating from the Lemagrut volcano, and then they were transported by water to the Olduvai river beds. So in my research, as I mentioned, that I conducted a survey on the raw material sources. Basically, I was interested in understanding how the distance from the raw material sources had affected the way hominins had shaped or organized their technology. So for example, Angelucine up here was the source of phonorite raw materials. And then we have Nibosort, which I'd already mentioned. And then I looked at the raw material conglomerates, which were contemporaneous to the FC East and WK site. and collected the cobbles, which were later analyzed, and then I compared the properties with the actual archaeological materials. So in this slide, these are the raw material conglomerates where these cobbles, the two pictures at the bottom, those cobbles were collected from these raw material sources or conglomerates, which were, I named them as raw material source 1 and then raw material source 2. So now I am going to talk to you about the archaeology, now focusing on each particular site. Starting off with the FC site. FC is located at the north sides of the side gorge up here, where you see the red box. And there at the bottom right top is the FC East outcrop. So chronologically, FC East is within bed 2, and the assemblages from FC East are dating between 1.6, 1.5 million years. So the analysis at FC East are focused on the archaeological assemblages which were excavated by Olduvai Gorge Archaeology Project, a team co-directed by my PhD advisor, Professor Ignacio de la Torre. And then the sample from FC East provides a comprehensive technological data, which basically the analysis of cores, flakes, and retouched pieces. So this diagram here shows the stratigraphy of FC East trenches, which were excavated by OGAB. Specifically, my sample originated from T31, trench 31, and these the archaeological units where the FC East materials originated from. So now to give you a little bit of a picture of where the FC East trench 31, if I'm not sure if you can see here, trench 31 level 30, that's where the actual archaeological materials that for my research were originated from. And then in terms of composition, most of them were dominated by quartzite, basalt, and quartz, phonolite, and trachyte. The picture there on the right is basically the plan of archaeological materials, which again were uncovered from trench 31 of FC East. So now let's have a look at the characteristics of the FC East FC East archaeological materials. So mainly they're dominated by detached pieces, which are mainly flakes and flake fragments. These are the most predominant materials. As you can see, this picture are some of the FC East flakes. Again, the picture at the bottom here shows some of the archaeological materials from FC East. And then you can see here also flaked pieces, which are cores and retouch tools minimally represented. Although the pieces from the flaked pieces are low in number, but their weight contribution is very significant. And again, the flake length from FC East were mainly between 2 and 3 centimeters long, and again with the width about the same size as the length. So also the FC East flakes, I looked at the dorsal cortex coverage. Mainly this is to understand the reduction in intensity. And then I looked at the number of scars on the dorsal sides of FC East flakes. As you can see here, this graph, most of the FC East flakes were non-cortical, and then they preserved 1 to 3 scars patterns. So as I mentioned earlier, in this study, I only analyzed only small debitages, and most of the cores at FC East were small in size and had a smaller weight. As you can see here, most of them were 2 to 3 centimeters long. And again, in terms of thickness, the width also they were between the same size as the length. But also FC East cores were mostly manufactured from if you look at the image on the left, were manufactured from mostly cobbles. And then if you look at in terms of raw materials, basalt are the most predominant than the quartzite cobbles. So in terms of the exploitation strategy or the way cores were exploited at FC East, most of the cores were unifacially, bifacially, and midfacially worked. And the exploitation strategies identified here are helping us to understand the way hominins manipulated or rotated the cores from different angles to obtain flakes. And again, at FC East, I looked at the retouched pieces because they are also part of the FC East technology. And most of the retouched pieces were made from flakes. And again, they had similar length or dimensions, most of them 2 to 3 centimeters, and the same as width. However, in terms of weight, most of them were between 1 and 9 grams. And the most prevalent retouched type was the denticulates, which were followed by notches and as well as the side scrapers. So in terms of the FC's technological strategies, within the cores, there is a predominance of flake scar patterns of 1 to 3 and 4 to 6 scars. So most of the FC's cores had 1 to 3, between 1 to 3 and 4 and 6 flake scars. And the analysis of core length at FC East indicate that most of the cores were between 2 to 3 centimeters and then 4 to 5 centimeters. As you can see, they were very, very small. And this suggests that hominins used the small to medium cores to manufacture flakes. And as this result is consistent with the results of flake length, as we have seen above, whereas most flakes are 2 to 3 and 4 to 5 centimeters. And occasionally some of the flakes were between 6 and 7 centimeters. So in conclusion, the FC East sample analyzed from T31 had a total of 15 kilograms of utilized raw materials, and mainly of the small debitage chain operatoire, which consists of small, medium, and few large-sized cores, as well as retouched tools. This suggests that the raw material used to manufacture different lithic categories that were obtained from local sources located nearby the site and were procured to the site for the aim of producing stone tools, and metamorphic were the most preferred raw materials at Olduvai, at FC site. So now let us move on to JK site. And as I said, I analyzed 2 sites or 2 assemblages at JK, but I will only include 1. So basically, to give you a little bit of a picture, JK site is located here just north of WK site, and this is the JK site outcrop. This site was first excavated by Lithic during the 1930s expedition, and it is one of the most important sites within Olduvai in terms of studying Homo erectus stone tool remains. So let us have a look at the characteristics of the JK assemblage. Again, JK West, the assemblage you analyzed from 2 archaeological units, which Mary Leakey named JK Grey Sand and JK Ferruginous Sand levels. And the current samples were from the JK Grey Sand and JK Ferruginous Sand. And I focused on the flakes, flake fragments, and cores. And as you can see, most of the JK flakes were, again, similar to FC, 2 to 3 centimeters, and then 4 to 6 centimeters in terms of the length, and the width is also very similar. In terms of weight, most of them were under 20 grams. Again, this is another picture of the JK's flakes. As you can see, the picture there on the left, most of them were very small in size, again, 2 to 3 centimeters long. And again, I looked at the reduction intensity of the JK flakes by using Nicholas Toth type flake types, which are basically, as you can see at the picture on the right, most of them were Toth type 5 and type 6, which were mainly at the later stages of reduction. But again, I looked at the impact point on the flake platform and found that most of them were unifaceted. So in terms of a reduction intensity, I looked at the cortex coverage and then the number of flake scars. So as you can see here, most of the flakes were non-cortical. There is higher frequency of non-cortical flakes, and most of them on the dorsal side had 1 to 3 flake scars. And so again, this is suggesting a lower to medium reduction intensity. Now let us look at the JK cores, which were amount to 21 kilograms of raw materials. Again, this can give you an idea of the effort that hominins had invested in transporting raw material from the source to the site. And most of them were made up from quartzite, which is the most predominant raw material at JK. And some of the cores average length of 6 centimeters and the weight of 240 grams. So most of the JK cores were manufactured from the river cobbles. As you can see at the picture on the right at the bottom left, there is predominance of cobbles, which is followed by blocks, flakes, and then some of them were indeterminate. So again, in terms of reduction intensity of cores at JK, I looked at the percentage of the cortex, and as you can see, most of them were preserving less than 50% cortex coverage. And then in terms of raw materials, again, most of them had less than 50% cortex coverage, with basalt being the most prevalent. And again, reduction intensity was looked at by using the number of flake scars on the cores, and as you can see, most of them had 1 to 3, between 1 to 3 and 7 to 9 scars. So now let us look at the reduction process or the exploitation systems. The reduction process employed here had various flaking techniques, which were unifacial, bifacial, and multifacial, similar to FC East. And the most prevalent technique is the multifacial scheme, which indicate higher reduction intensity. However, there are some indicators of short-term flaking sequence, which are due to the presence of unifacially worked cores and then bifacially simple worked cores. So this picture here shows some of the JK site cores. These ones were discoid cores, and these ones at the top were multifacially worked cores. Now let us have a look at the JK retouched pieces. Again, these were from the small debitage reduction intensity, which contributes to this JK sample, had a total weight of 1.5 kilograms, and most of the retouched tools originated from the flake blanks. And as you can see, most of them had, again, 2 to 3 centimeters length and 4 to 6 centimeters length, similarly with the width. And again, in terms of weight, most of them were between 1 and 9 grams. So this picture here in the middle shows you some of the retouched tools types which were found from JK site, and most of them were of notch retouched types. So now let us have a look at the overall technological strategies of the JK site. As shown above, the core size range between 2 to 3 centimeters and 180 and 199 millimeters long, and the most prevalent length is between 4 and 5 centimeters long, and followed by 6 and 7 centimeters long. Again, this can give you an idea of the flake size which were detached from the cores. And most of the JK cores had the weight of 100 to 200 grams. Some of them were also 200 and 400 grams. Again, most of the core blanks at JK site were made from the cobble blanks, followed by blocks. So most of the blocks were originating from the quartzite. And again, most of the cobbles were predominantly basalt, followed by trachyte, phonolite, whereas quartzite were the least represented. So the exploitation technique utilized at JK waste show a prevalence of an intense reduction method, particularly the predominance of multifacial cores and high percentage of cores with cortex less than 50% cortex coverage, which all indicate an extended exploitation of cores at the site. So it should be noted that most of the
Alexander? Hello? Just 1 minute. I think he lost his connection. We'll get back. Yeah. Alexander?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Yeah.
Sorry, I just had to off that.
Oh dear. Okay.
Can you see me?
Yeah, we can see you and we can still see the slides. Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Right, so now we'll continue. So the exploitation technique used at the JK West site showed the prevalence of an intense reduction in method, which particularly shows the predominance of multifacial cores and a high percentage of cores with less than 50% cortex coverage, indicating an extended exploitation of cores at the site. It should be noted that most of the knapping products obtained from the cores were relatively small in size, with dimensions ranging 2 to 3 centimeters, suggesting that the JK hominins' goal was to produce small flakes, which could also potentially explain why most retouched tools in these assemblages are notches, followed by denticulates, as well as the cursory. As I said earlier, WK site stands for Waylands Korongo, and it's located just south of the JK site. And this site was first excavated by this table here shows some of the WK materials that were excavated by Mary Leakey. And then the sample for this study was derived from basically what Mary Leakey had previously excavated. So now let us have a look at the WK site assemblage, which is mainly predominated by, again, detached pieces. As you can see, most of the flakes are predominant, followed by fragmented flakes, and then retouched tools, and then cores. And in terms of raw materials, again, as you can see, flakes still are predominating the assemblage. And then again, in terms of the flake pieces, cores appear to be the most predominant than the retouched tools. Most of the WK flakes were ranging in terms of length, 4 to 5 centimeters long. Again, as you can see now, the size is changing as we go higher up in the sequence. The picture to my right shows that there's predominance of flakes which have the length of 4 to 5 centimeters, followed by 2 to 3, then 6 to 7 centimeters long. The picture there on the left, these are some of the typical WK site flakes. As you can see, some of them had 2 to 3, but most of them are 4 to 5 centimeters long. So again, in terms of the striking platform, picture on the left shows that most of the WK flakes were unifaceted on the platform. There's predominance of unifaceted flakes. And then in terms of the reduction intensity, by looking at the tooth flake types, there's predominance of tooth type 5 and type 6, which indicate the later stages of reduction intensity. But again, in terms of the dorsal cortex coverage, image on the left shows that there is predominance of non-cortical flakes at WK site. And again, on the dorsal side, this number of flake scars is 1 to 3 and 4 to 6 scar patterns. So, so in terms of pores at WK site, there is majority of metamorphic pores or quartzite cores, which have the length of image on the right, 4 to 5 centimeters long, and then followed by 6 to 7 centimeters long. And again, the same as the width, there's predominance of 4 to 5 and 6 to 7 centimeters wide. And again, most of them in terms of weight had weighed between 100 to 200 grams, and then 200 to 400 grams heavier. In terms of the core reduction, there is a predominance of cores that preserve less than 50% of cortex coverage, and most of them had 1 to 3 and 4 to 6 flake scars. Most of the WK cores were manufactured from the cobbles, which were followed by the block blanks. So now let us have a look at the co-exploitation strategies at WK site. So the most prevalent strategy is the multifacial flaking scheme, which is followed by bifacial, and then the least predominant is the unifacial. So as you can see, the image on the right, there's predominance of multifacial cores, and again, in terms of the reduction intensity, most of them are preserved 1 to 3 and 4 to 6 scar patterns, flake scars, and then had the length of 4 to 5 and 6 to 7 centimeters long. Image on the left is the example of the WK cores. The ones at the top, most of them are discoids. And then the one at the bottom, most of them were multifacial, some of them which were described as polyhedral. So the exploitation strategy at WK site shows there is a dependence of the quartzite raw materials there. Nonetheless, there is a significant difference within the unifacial reduction within lava, which is again less popular than the metamorphic. WKE sites retouched pieces were mainly between 2 and 3 centimeters and 4 to 6 centimeters in terms of length, and were mainly from the flake blanks. And again, in terms of width, there were 2 to 3 and 4 to 6 centimeters. However, in terms of weight, most of them were between 10 and 19 grams. Image on the right is a sample of some of the WK retouched pieces that were analyzed for this study. In terms of cortex, most of the WK retouched pieces were mostly non-cortical, as you can see on this image on the right. And there was predominance of notch retouch types, followed by denticulate and then the side scrapings. Image on the left is an example of the WK retouch pieces. As you can see, specimens in the middle indicate notches, and then specimen at the bottom indicate denticulates. Now let's have a look at the WKE's technological strategies. So an examination of the core sample revealed the predominance of flake scar patterns ranging 1 to 3 and 4 to 6 scar patterns. And then cortex analysis shows a predominance of cores with less than 50% cortex coverage, indicating that nappers did not fully exploit the cores. This evidence is consistent with both flake types, which shows the predominance of types 5 and 6 flakes, as we have seen above. Furthermore, there is predominance of the unifaceted platforms. Then this again indicates that nappers removed cortex from the cores before detaching a flake from a core. The analysis of core again shows most of the cores were 4 to 5 and 6 to 7 centimeters long. And this evidence indicates that hominins at WK used medium to large cores to manufacture flake products. Oh, it has skipped, sorry. Now, after we have looked at the 3 sites, FCS, JK, and WK, now let us compare the results from these sites and see if there is a continuity or change within the Acheulean debitage in beds 2, 3, and 4. Mind you, FCS within bed 2, JK bed 3, and WK within bed 4. So here I bring to you together the technological data from the 3 sites, and which reveal the predominance of flakes. As you can see at the image on the left, there is predominance of detached pieces or flakes, which were followed by cores and then retouched pieces. So the comparison of core sizes and weight shows that most of the cores were between 6 and 7 centimeters long, as you can see the image on the left. Most of them were 6 to 7 and then centimeters long. And again, here there's most of them from FC East, JK West, and WK sites were characterized by 6 to 7 and then 4 to 6 and 4 to 5 and then 5 to 6 centimeters long. So again, most of the cores, particularly basalts, had the weight of 100 to 200 grams, and then 200 to 400 grams. And then occasionally, some of them reached up to around 800 grams. So the comparison of cortex and flake scars, this help us to measure the level of reduction intensity, as you can see on the image on the left. So most of the pores have the cortex which was less than 50% cortex coverage. Again, most of them had 1 to 3 and 4 to 6 scar patterns, flake scars, as can be seen on the image to your right. So this can give us a picture of the level of reduction intensity at these 3 sites. As you can see, FC East, JK West, sorry, I think FC East, most of them are in black, then JK West in red, and JK in blue, and then WK in dark blue. So in terms of the flaking schemes, of the flaking strategies, as you can see on this image here, there is predominance of multifacial cores from the major raw materials, basalt, quartzite, and phonolite, as well as trachyte, and followed by test cores, which stands for TC, whereas other flaking schemes being less represented. So all analyzed cores from all sites yield different exploitation techniques that appear different in numbers and frequencies. So overall, most there's a prevalence of exploitation schemes which are mainly multifacial and test cores. So most of the basalt cores are measuring, again, 2 to 3 centimeters and 4 to 5 centimeters long, as you can see on the image to your left. And in addition, some of them also show predominance of quartzite flakes. As you can see here on the image to your right, there's predominance of, if you look at the red, there's a predominance of WK quartzite flakes. And also, this clearly shows that the hominins were utilizing quartzite raw materials to manufacture flakes, particularly smaller flakes. And this is evidenced by the small number of flakes, sorry, small size of flakes, which is 2 to 3 and 4 to 5 centimeters long. So again, the comparison of the flakes are focused on the cortex coverage. As you can see here, there is a predominance of, again, image on the left, non-cortical flakes. And then again, image on the right, there is predominance of Toth type 5 and type 6, which indicate later stage of reduction. So this is seen across all sites or within the entire bits 2, 3, and 4 sequence. Therefore, here it can be argued that the higher percentage of non-cortical and non-cortical dominant dorsal cortex on flakes indicate that higher level of reduction. However, differences in raw materials gave different results in reduction levels, with the quartzite showing a high percentage of non-cortical flakes than other raw materials, which had given different results. To striking platform and dorsal cortex of flakes, dorsal cortex coverage on flakes, and all flakes were compared based on the raw materials. Generally, there's an increase in reduction intensity as you move up in the sequence. This is supported by overall significant underrepresentation of non-cortical flakes from the sites in the lower sequence, coupled with an increasing overrepresentation of non-cortical flakes within sites located upper parts of the Olduvai sequence. So basically, from beds 2, 3, and 4, there are changes in terms of the reduction of flakes. Thus, hominins at Olduvai had an increased production and utilization of flakes during the beds 2, 3, and bed 4 times. And this is due to an increase in their technological capacity. That means their skills had increased, as well as the raw material availability and then raw material selectivity, the way they selected raw materials for stone tool manufacture. Last part is I compared the retouching patterns on these sites, and most retouch tools, again, because they were made from flake planks, had similar length as flakes, which is 2 to 3 centimeters, followed by 4 to 6. And again, most of them were between 1 and 9 grams. And then in terms of width, had similar dimensions as the length. In terms of the retouch type, most of them were notch. As you can see here on this image, there's prevalence of notch retouch type, followed by denticulates and then side scrapers. So it is clear that Acheulean hominins at Olduvai had retouched different types of raw materials which were available at their disposal, and exhibited their technological skills through different retouch types, with notch types being the most preferred than other types of retouches. So this may primarily be due to the presence of or the preference of or the level of skills in shaping the stone tools at Olduvai. So now let us move on to the results and conclusion. And as I introduced this research area, that most beds 2, 3, and 4 had received less attention, especially in the studies related to lithic technology and hominin behavior. My study had identified and presented technological behavior of Homo erectus within beds 2, 3, and 4 of Olduvai Gorge, Tanzania, by trying to answer the 2 main research questions, which first was through technological analysis, how can we measure the technological capabilities of these hominins and whether there is a stasis or technological change. So the answers to this question is that beginning with the first question is that evidence on hominin lithic technology which was presented above can arguably suggest that technological capabilities existed amongst the Acheulean sites at Olduvai Gorge, and this is confirmed by the evidence of a well-defined technology which is characterized by systematic technological organization. And hominins at FC East, JK, and WK site had a clear and organized technology that represent a standardized tool production methods. For example, multifacial cores indicate hominins were able to rotate the core and to detach plates from multiple platforms. Test cores also indicate that hominins examined different core blanks. Again, they were testing the raw material quality to see if it is suitable for stone tool manufacture. And furthermore, the selection of raw materials, particularly the homogeneous rocks, quartzite and basalt, demonstrate their ability of identifying and selecting raw materials for stone tool production. In terms of the second question, the evolution of stone tools from simple technology to complex and more refined technology may reflect both the advancement of tool-making ability and development of cognitive complexity. Mary Leakey's distinction of stone tools focused on typological aspects, as I mentioned earlier, and at Olduvai, different raw materials were utilized to manufacture stone tools, which were manufactured using different techniques or schemes. For example, test core, unifacial simple cores, bifacial simple cores, unifacial cores, multifacial cores, and so forth. So these complex techniques yielded from different toolkit designs and sizes are showing evidence that at these sites, FC East, JK, and WK site, hominins were...
Yeah, just a second. He will get back to us. Just a second.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah. Okay. Some technical issue from our side right now. So, okay, you can continue, Alexander. Yeah. Extremely sorry, everyone. Yeah.
So as I was continuing to describe the answers to the second question, is that the evidence from these sites presents interassemblage variations which are crucial for understanding whether there is a stasis or technological change. And during this time period, beds 2, 3, and 4 were characterized by an increase in complexity of stone tool manufacture. And therefore, based on the archaeological evidence from the sites, it appears that there were some notable technological changes during the Acheulean periods, while core elements of the Acheulean toolkit remained consistent. Again, there is an instance of innovation and variations in toolkit design and production techniques over time, which suggests a degree of both stasis and technological change within the Acheulean of Olduvai. Again, I was interested in understanding the raw material economies. These are the supporting questions. So what was the raw material economy like during the beds 2, 3, and 4? So hominins at FC East, JK, and WK site had a clearly defined raw material economy, which shows that hominins were preferentially selecting raw material types from the locally available primary sources. So for example, quartzite were originated from Nibosoid source, cobbles were from the Olduvai riverbeds. In addition, it should be noted that the hominins were knowledgeable of the rock properties and selected homogeneous rocks that had good qualities of napping activities. This is an indicative of the organized and well-planned lithic technology that represents the hominin technological capabilities and their organizational skills. Again, I was interested in understanding how the raw material availability had influenced, where it was influenced by the distance from the raw material sources to the raw material site. So Rob Blumenschein and others almost a decade ago conducted a research, and they came up with this model on the distance decay model. So basically, the farther you move from the raw material source, the more the cores are heavily utilized. So in my research, I was trying to test this model, whether the farther the distance from the raw material source, did it show that the cores were heavily utilized or heavily flaked. So at Olduvai, raw materials were from different sources, as I mentioned, and this study had shown that most of the raw materials were locally available, and the hominins were able to collect raw materials from the nearby sources. And due to short distances between the raw material sources and sites, hominins were easily able to access different raw material types within a short period of time. Therefore, this allows us to understand that there was an exhibition of low reduction in intensity, and the technology was mostly expedient. In addition, the toolkit contained small debitage material, as I mentioned earlier, small cores. This is evidenced by this core size, which have flake length between 2 and 3 centimeters, similarly retouched pieces as well. Thus, it can be argued that short distances and raw material source availability had affected hominins' reduction in intensity and the toolkit design. But again, I was interested in understanding what was the raw material, the technological organization of the Acheulean hominins like. As defined in this chapter, these are the main results that I had provided. That the technological organization mainly involved the strategies from the beginning of the collection or procurement of raw materials, how the raw material was utilized all the way to the time it was discarded. And from the results we have seen above, it can be argued that the technological organization of Acheulean hominins had involved the whole process from the raw material procurement all the way to the discard. But also I was interested in understanding how the paleogeography had influenced the way the raw materials availability and how the changes of the raw material source had influenced the hominin behavior. So in the chapter 5 of my thesis, I did a detailed study of the raw material sources and how they influence the availability of raw materials for hominins, and it was found that most of these sources had made sure that the raw materials were available, particularly from the major sources such as Nibosoid and Remagut, Naisisu, and other sources, which most of them, for example, Nibosoid was the source of the blanks, the block blanks, whereas the Remagut was the source of the cobbles. So to summarize the results of this study, so through a comprehensive lithic technological analysis, it can be stated that Homo erectus at Olduvai had a well-defined and complex technological capability, and it was found that the hominins were able to locate, select raw materials from the locally available sources, and they were able to preferentially select certain raw material types based on their quality and texture. And in these local sources, hominins were also picking specific sizes of rocks. For example, for flake production, as we have seen, most of the cores were 2 to 3 and 4 to 5, as well as 5 to 6 centimeters long. And various co-exploitation strategies were also used to produce flakes, and hominins were specifically aiming at producing flakes with consistent characteristics throughout the sequence. So for example, at FC's, JK, and WK sites, most of the flakes were 2 to 3 centimeters long. Furthermore, they provide the exploitation strategy, which incorporated myofascial exploitation and test calls. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Alexander, for such an interesting and wonderful talk. Thank you so much. Okay, you can stop sharing and then you can have a look at the chat box where we have some questions. Or do you want me to read the questions out?
So we have how many questions?
We can take 2 to 3 questions. So, shall I read out the first one?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we have wait a second. Just give me a second. Yeah. So one of our first question is by Professor Erela, and she is asking 2 questions. What are the sample sizes for the each assemblage? Also, a more general question. When presenting the Olduvai sequence, you talked about the developed Olduvai. Do you think it is a valid taxon or that, as De La Torre and others suggested, it should be subsumed into the early Acheulean?
Sorry, can you repeat the second one? Developed old one, is it valid for?
Is it valid taxon or that, as De La Torre and others suggested, it should be subsumed into early Acheulean?
Thank you. To begin with the first question, in terms of the sample sizes, FC East, I analyzed slightly over 300 lithic artifacts. JK sites altogether, at least over 1,200 artifacts, and WK around 250 artifacts. In terms of the developed Old One terminology, well, this was initially developed by Mary Leakey when she was analyzing Olduvai materials, when she started noticing that some of the stone tools had similar shapes with the Acheulean hand axes, which you cannot fully say that these were the complete Acheulean hand axes because they were small in size, but also they were very, very poorly shaped. So Mary Leakey, instead of naming them as part of the Acheulean hand axes, she decided to call them developed Old One materials, and she had subdivided them into developed Old One A, B, and developed Old One C. So the term developed Old One has been heavily debated by different scholars, and most of them in one way or another had thought that probably these do not fully belong to the Acheulean technology because some of them were still found within the Olduvai sequence within Olduvai Gorge. Some of them had an explanation that there are probably some of the early Acheulean stone implements. And I think in my view, probably these developed Old One materials should remain within the Oldowan technology because they were poorly shaped, they were smaller in size, but the Acheulean materials, particularly hand axes, were very large in size. Again, they were very nicely shaped, not as poorly shaped as the developed Oldowan materials. I'm not sure if I have answered Professor Herrera Hover's questions correctly. I just tried to do my best.
Yeah. I think you have answered our question, and we can go to the next one. We have one question from Gopesh. He is asking yeah. Can you read, I mean, have a look at this question in chat box by Gopesh Jha?
Okay, is that the one I would like to know more about production
Yes,
efficiency?
those ones. Yeah.
Different raw materials. What insights can be drawn about core management strategies from dorsoflake scar patterns and intensity? Is there observable variations in core management strategy due to raw materials? Okay. Sorry, I will start with question number one, which focuses on going about the flake production efficiency across different raw materials. What insights can be drawn about core management strategies from dorsal flake patterns and intensity? Well, from my view, I think some of the insights in terms of the management strategy, we see that from most of the sites that hominins were mainly utilizing small cores, and they were mainly focusing on producing smaller flakes. So we see that pattern, but again, the flake scar patterns were indicating intensity because, which is mainly lower intensity because of the smaller number of flake scars on the core, on the flake dorsal scars. And he asked if there is an observable variation in core management due to raw material differences. Yes, there is some observable variations. Some of the raw materials were heavily worked, which particularly the ones with which were homogeneous, which could flake easily. We see the pattern that hominins were preferring these raw materials. But again, there is some differences, whereas quartzite was also being utilized because I believe because of its sharpness, and again, its abundant availability. And again, he asked how do the frequencies, hinge and support step fractures in cores vary across different raw materials? Yes, well, in my research, I had presented the napping accidents on the cores. Particularly, I was able, well, I didn't talk about it in this presentation, but I was able to find that most of the quartzite cores had step fractures. So there is a high percentage of napping accidents, particularly step fractures. fractures on quartzite cores. Very few step fractures were found in other raw material types. Regarding the multifacial cores, are they predominantly multi-platform or single platform? Well, most of them are multi-platforms. So you find at least there is a 2 to 3, sometimes 4 flaking platforms, which were used to detach flakes. And B, how does raw material type influence the characteristics and use? Well, in terms of in my research, I did not conduct any use, so I'm not sure if I can correctly answer your question in terms of use of the raw material types. But again, I'm happy to go and have a look or to conduct further studies on how the raw material type could help us to influence the characteristics and the use. I'm not sure if I have correctly answered your question.
I think you have answered all his questions, Alexander. And we can take just one more. I guess Razika also had some doubt. And then Razika?
Hi.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Alexander, for this presentation. Just small questions. What do you think about the later Olduvaian from Olduvai and the early Ashurian? It's about the technological component, please.
What do I think about later Oldowan and
the early Ashurian?
Later Oldowan and early Ashurian. Well, in my research, basically, I did not really analyze late Oldowan materials because Olduvai's late Oldowan materials were mainly studied by other researchers, particularly Professor Ignacio de la Torre had conducted a study of one of late Oldowan sites, which is HWK East in Olduvai Gorge, and most of his research, basically most of the materials that he analyzed, particularly late Oldowan materials. In my research, I had mainly focused on the early Acheulean materials, but specifically the small debitage raw materials, stone tools. So I'm happy to go and have a look, and then I'll come back and or I'm happy to suggest or share the paper by Ignacio de la Torre and others to you so that you can have a look.
Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Okay. With this question, I guess we will stop our today's session. And then we will meet everyone in our next session, which will be in September. And once again, I would like to thank Alexander for joining us on this wonderful session and giving his current work, like what he's doing and all the details about Olduvai gods. Thank you so much, Alexander. Razika, would you like to say something?
Thank you for everyone, and see you soon in another discussion about the Lower Paleolithic.